One of the great shocks of the last election cycle, of course, was the victory of Glenn Youngkin in Virginia. That was supposed to be a blue state. That state is now turning red. Joining us on the line is Jason Miyares. He was elected the 48th Attorney General of Virginia this past November, a former prosecutor from Virginia Beach. The Attorney General is the son of a Cuban immigrant. He is the first elected Hispanic official to statewide office in Virginia, as well as the first son of an immigrant to be Attorney General of Virginia. Clearly, Virginia is filled with vicious Republican racists. Jason, thanks so much for joining the show. Really appreciate it.
Ben, it's an honor to be with you. Thanks so much for having me on.
So why don't we begin with the Youngkin agenda and what you are doing as Attorney General in order to ensure the safety and security of the people of Virginia. So obviously, your predecessors were very much focused on cracking down on the police. You saw a massive spike in crime. What exactly are you doing to reverse that?
Well, listen, what we saw in Virginia, people don't think elections matter. We had kind of this far left liberal monopoly that had controlled Richmond for 2 years. And in just 2 years, they had passed a lot of what I would call criminal first, victim last policies. Not surprisingly, you saw a boom in both crime. You had our murder rates the highest in 2 decades. You had a parole board letting out cop killers, murderers, and rapists back out early on the streets. You had people like David Simpkins, who had 56 prior felony convictions, including 14 prior armed robberies. He gets out, and what does he do within 30 days of getting out? He commits then his 57th felony by committing an armed robbery outside of Roanoke. So you had all these issues, and I like to say Virginia, it's not really a blue or red state, it's a common sense state. Virginians saw this criminal first, victim last mindset, and they said, listen, we want to change in direction. So public safety was one of the big issues in this race. So the first thing that Governor Youngkin did, signed an executive order authorizing me to both investigate the parole board scandal, to investigate what happened in Loudoun School with the sexual assault. I know there's been a lot of reporting on that, and we're ongoing that investigation. So all of those headlines, I think, really caused Virginians to say, you know what, this kind of far left tilt that we have going on in Richmond, we need a change. And so we're really gratifying to come in, and we got the ball rolling from day one. And it's been enjoyable. Then the other is obviously empowering parents. That's been a huge part of both our campaign message and what we've done since we've gotten in the office.
So let's talk about empowering parents. Obviously, one of the big controversial things that Glenn Youngkin has done as governor of Virginia is sign into law a bill that lets parents opt out of masking in schools starting on March 1st. This has been to the consternation of the D.C. Beltway crowd, some of whom live in Northern Virginia, and who are very, very upset at the possibility that kids who are around their kids may not be masked, despite the fact that the danger to children from COVID has been extraordinarily low by the statistics since literally the beginning of the pandemic. How has Glenn Youngkin's move here been received? And what actions have you been taking to defend the rights of parents with regard to unmasking their small children?
Well, I mean, as far as it's been received, it's been remarkable. And, what we said is, listen, if you're a parent and you want your child to be masked for 6, 7, 8 hours a day, you could do that. But if you're also a parent of somebody who, say, has asthma, or I had another parent who came up to me and said, my daughter went from being an all A student to a mostly C student because she wears glasses and they're constantly fogging up, and school is now miserable. You are able to make that choice. And this is, if there's any emphasis I'd have for candidates running for office in 2022 is, do not be afraid to make one of your main messaging points. We're going to empower parents. Parents are very upset that you had school boards that seem completely tone deaf. Ben, our children have not had a normal life since 2019. Let's give them back a normal life. Let's empower parents. And we are seeing a mental health crisis right now. This is astronomical. I thought it was so ironic that you turned on the Super Bowl a couple Sundays ago and you saw in California, of all places, 70,000 people together. And almost all of them were not wearing masks, but the children that are the least susceptible to COVID, the least likely to spread it, were forced to go in and wear a mask. I had one mom who said, listen, my daughter told me how excited she was that for the very first time, she's going to be able to see what her best friend at school actually looks like. Think about what we're doing to these kids, that really critical age gap of 4 to 8, where you're really learning nonverbal communication. Children miss that. And so we are seeing both the mental health crisis in Virginia. It's been particularly onerous in our minority communities. We saw African-American children having 2/3 were passing our standard of learning test in Virginia to 2/3 were failing. It has had the numbers we're seeing, Ben, in Virginia, once we're getting these results, are just horrific. So this really goes back to each parent knows what's best. It's actually in the law of Virginia that you have a fundamental right to the education upbringing of your child. We're going to actually follow the law. We're going to empower parents, let parents make that decision. grateful for the court victories and grateful the governor was able to sign in legislation and doing exactly that.
We're speaking with Attorney General Jason Miyares of Virginia. So one of the things that you've been working on as well is a reversal of a bizarre policy in Virginia where people were being allowed not to pay child support. Why was that happening in the first place?
Well, candidly, it goes a little bit of what we've seen with this far left liberal monopoly, which candidly has this warped sense of justice. We saw it with their criminal first, victim last mindset. This is a warped sense of justice. We found out, it's like moving into a new house when you take over an office. You find out things as you get in. And my predecessor just summarily decided over 1,000 child support cases. Our child support division here within the Attorney General's office was essentially asking me for authority to do their jobs again. And these are cases of oftentimes single mothers that the Attorney General's office comes in and prosecutes these child support cases. Think about this image, over 1,000 of these individuals showing up to court, these moms, and finding out that the state has just summarily dismissed the petition against the deadbeat dad that left home. And so I was obviously beyond mortified and told the staff, listen, I don't need a memo explaining why we should change this. We are prosecuting these and taking care of these on day one. But they did this when I asked, well, what was the reasoning for this? And again, it was, well, apparently there was a fairness and equity issue. Well, again, goes back to this warped sense of justice we're seeing on the left. That's not justice for the single mom, just like it's not justice for the victim of a violent crime to see the perpetrator get out and released early and back on the street. And so I want to take back the term justice. I think the left has tried to adopt it. We need to talk about justice for victims, justice for those moms that are trying to get child support for their child. That's real justice. And so I want to end the warped sense of justice and get real justice back in the office of the Attorney General.
That's Jason Miyares. He's the 48th Attorney General of Virginia, elected this past November. Jason, thanks so much for your time, and thanks for what you're doing over there.
Great. Thanks so much, Ben.